Ah, Storm Connections. I've been waiting eagerly to finally get my hands on you. Storm Connections was released on November 18, 2023, 7 long years after Storm 4 hit the shelves. This game marks the longest gap between any of the previous Storm games, which usually had a 1 to 2 year interval between releases. This installment has been dragged through the mud by almost everyone who has played it, but is it really that bad? Let's find out. But before we dive into the game's modes, we need to discuss the most important part of the game, the battle mechanics. The battle mechanics in this title have been significantly updated. While the core combat system remains the same, a major new addition is that every character now has 2 jutsus, similar to the old Ultimate Ninja games. Pressing the triangle and square button allows you to execute a second jutsu. If you have played the previous Storm games, you might remember that these inputs used to make your character throw a chakra kunai, but in this game that's been replaced by the second jutsu. The second jutsu is almost always a ranged attack, while the original jutsu remains a close range one, giving players new ways to strategize in battle. The chakra regeneration rate has also been increased. Now, if your character standing still, chakra automatically refills faster than in any previous Storm game. It also regenerates while you're moving, though not as quickly. This automatic chakra regeneration adds another layer of strategy. Another notable change is that each character now has an unlimited supply of items. Previously, characters had 1 to 2 items per slot, but now they regenerate over time and can be used infinitely. Another new feature is that when an enemy is falling, they enter a crumple state, which allows you to extend a combo. This enables players to perform some devastating combos. In response to this, where players can juggle enemies for longer, CC2 has added a damage scaling. The longer your combo, the less damage each hit does. In this game, you now have the option to choose between a classic input system and a simplified input system. The simplified system allows you to perform every attack, dodge and jutsu with a single button, making an already easy to play game even easier. The roster in this game has been updated and slightly expanded. We now have around 130 characters to choose from. Nearly 98% of these characters are carried over from Storm 4, with the only exception being the addition of Momoshiki Kinshiki from previous DLCs, all the Karu members and adult versions of Takanoa 11 as separate characters. If I'm not mistaken, these adult versions are the same Shippuden characters, just with new skins and new slots in the roster. The character roster is being updated regularly, with new characters added every few months like Kurenai, Kawashiki and Ishiki. These can be acquired by purchasing the season pass or buying them separately. Now that we have covered this, let's move on to the first game mode, the history mode. Before we start, I have to say that I dislike this mode with a passion. The history mode essentially is a story retelling of all the events starting from OG Naruto to the end of Naruto Shippuden. The idea itself is great, but the way how they execute everything is just freaking awful. Basically, after selecting a chapter, you are presented with this timeline. The timeline has 4 different types of events. We have these empty still frames on the anime that don't have any voiceovers, just displaying some images and text that vaguely explain a small event in the story. Then we have these still frames from the previous section, but this time they are narrated by the Sage of Six Paths. I'm not kidding, these 2 sections use the same still images from the anime. What's the point of giving me text if the next chapter will be the same thing? The biggest issue with these still frames, at least in the initial chapters, is that in some instances the game will show you a still frame from the first rendition of the anime, and then in the next part show you a still frame from the remastered or Shippuden anime, where the quality difference is noticeable. The next event is similar to Storm 4, where we are presented with the chapter sections. This event follows the patterns of Storm 4, where we have a cutscene, a fight, another cutscene, and then another fight. The only difference is that instead of giving us any animated CGI cutscenes, we are again presented with still frames from the anime. Was it really that hard to port over some CGI cutscenes that were in Storm 4 games, like for real? The last event presented at the end of every chapter are these Naruto related surveys. Usually these surveys ask a question related to the chapter's plot. Some of the questions are simple, but the other ones can be a bit deeper. The biggest issue with this mode is that it leaves out a ton of important moments and fights from the previous games. One example is the Kazekage rescue arc. In it we first have a 1v1 fight with Kakashi, where the boss battle is taken on Storm 2, and then the whole arc is presented with still frames from the show and explained really poorly. After the Kakashi fight, the next fight is only against Deidara, and that's it. What the hell was that? Heck, here's a whole list of all the boss battles that have been cut from the game but were present in the previous titles. Additionally, they have changed some boss battles into simple 1v1 fights. Some examples are Kakuzu vs Naruto, where in Storm 2 we got multiple sections of the battle and an awesome QTE event, while here is just a regular 1v1 battle. Another one is Pain vs Jiraiya. In Storm 2 we actually fought one of the other 6 paths of Pain and had multiple sections of the battle with an awesome QTE event, while here we fight only the Yahiko Pain version and that's it. The whole scene of Jiraiya dying is brought to us by anime still frames in lazy content we trust. Another sin that this mod commits is that it oversimplifies the QT scenes and reduces the number of stars that are needed to be gathered in order to see the secret factor. In the previous games, the QT events were easy and there were a lot of them, making it easy to get the secret factor. I'm still clueless why they reduced the difficulty. Speaking of difficulty, it's non-existent in this game. I am not sure if there's a slider or anything, but beating the 1v1 boss fights is way too easy. The previous Storm games battles were easy, with the exception of being Storm 4 and Storm 3's last battle, but here they have made them even more easier. In the end, the whole issue with missing fights and boss battles not related to Naruto and Sasuke kinda makes sense, because in the end it turns out that the Sage of Six Packs was retelling the story of Naruto. Yes, Naruto, not the whole series as a whole, but from Naruto's perspective, which is why we mostly experience only fights involving Naruto. After finishing this mod, we also helped Jiraiya finish his book, which is titled The Tale of Naruto Uzumaki. This whole recapping the Naruto story is also in the special story of this game. The special story is the strongest part of this whole game, single player wise. The special story is a filler storyline in which Boruto takes the lead role. This mod story was written by Masashi Kishimoto, and in my opinion he really cooked with this one. Essentially, the mod works the same way as Storm 4's story mode. This time we have chapters, and each chapter consists of multiple, and I mean multiple, in-game cutscenes and some CGI animated cutscenes that, when shown, look phenomenal. The cutscenes in this game are long, like really long. If you're not a fan of heavy story and lore related elements, this mod probably isn't for you. Alongside the cutscenes, we also have some 1v1 battles, which are really easy in this game, as well as some interesting boss battles that aren't that hard. One minus I'll give this mod is that there are no QT events. In some parts of the story, I feel like adding QT events would make the players more engaged in the story and not just watch a 15-minute cutscene without interruption. During the story, there is one section where we are presented with a mission layout, allowing us to tackle specific missions that basically involve us defeating set of enemies with specific themes in common, and that's it. The story, in my opinion, is one of the best Naruto game filler stories out there. I will cover only the first part of the story because I would like to encourage you to experience it for yourself if you can. Everything starts with this VR game called Ninja Heroes, which is being played by everyone in the world. Boruto is a big fan of this game and even convinces his friends to play along with him. In the meantime, a scientific researcher has stolen some new equipment and deserted the Konoha village. It turns out that the scientist defected to a new criminal organization called Zero. Zero's plan is to bring peace to the ninja world, the same way Pain and Madara try to do. The leader of the organization is called Mertz, and he looks like this. He is a follower of Pain and follows Pain's ideology, but has his own way of reaching world peace. While Boruto and gang are playing this new VR game, Boruto makes a new friend, an NPC by the name of Nanashi, who doesn't even like an NPC, but more like as a person, which is actually strange. Whenever Boruto plays the game, he always interacts with her. I have to note that every time Boruto plays the game, he feels a bit tired and exhausted. At first, Boruto doesn't pay attention to it, but he should. One time when Boruto was playing the game, in the real world, a Mangekyo Sharingan appeared on the moon, and everyone in the world was tagged with this Mangekyo Sharingan, which actually looks like Kakashi's Sharingan, but nobody notices it. It turns out that the rogue researcher had created the whole gaming console and the whole game in order to fulfill Mertz's plan. Remember when I mentioned that Boruto always felt fatigued after a gaming session? It turns out that the game was sucking the life force out of the players, even making some of the players pass out for multiple days. The sucked life force was then used to create the infinite Tsukiyomi, through which Mertz is able to control everyone who was tagged into doing his bidding, leading to the start of another Ninja World War. I won't spoil the rest of the story because if you've gotten the game, I highly suggest playing through the whole story. All I'm going to say is that one specific character makes a cameo in this game and plays a huge role in the story, and Nanashi plays a huge role in the story after a major plot twist is revealed. The ending of this mod is full of emotion and has an awesome culmination between Boruto and a specific character in the story. This whole mod made me cry, which is rare for me when playing video games. In my opinion, this mod carries the whole single player aspect of the game. But okay, what about the online part of this game? At the time of writing this, the online experience for this game is actually pretty fun and satisfying. I'll be honest, I suck at online and I always lose, but this is the first time where losing still feels enjoyable. The online mode currently offers only 3 modes: casual, ranked and custom matches. If I'm not mistaken, the casual match mode wasn't introduced at the game's release, which is crazy in my opinion. Casual mode is almost dead because no one is playing this game casually. The majority of the player base can be found in the ranked section. The players in this mode are just cracked, even at lower levels. In connections, when you find an opponent, you can first decide whether to accept the match or not based on the opponent's connection bar. This feature was also introduced later and was not available at launch. Additionally, while waiting for an opponent, you might see the character's logo and a level below them. This game, when you play a character online or offline, you can earn experience points to show how proficient you are with the character. Another thing I have to mention regarding characters is that character customization has been brought back from Storm Revolution. Now players are able to customize their favorite characters and use the new outfits online. The connection between players isn't as bad as I thought. If you're playing with a yellow bar, expect a 1 to 2 second delay, while on a blue bar you might get a 1 second delay. Unfortunately, there's there's no rollback netcode, we still have to deal with peer-to-peer connection, which is an L for CC2. After finishing a match, there's a small feature where you can clap for your opponent. I guess to promote good sportsmanship, doing so will give you 1 Rio. Also, after finishing a match, you have the option to rematch the same opponent up to 3 times, which is a great addition. One thing that has changed is that in Storm 4, we could see the players' disconnection rate and decide whether to play against them or not. Here they have the similar system but have changed it to smiley faces. Green means almost no rage quits, yellow means that the player sometimes tends to do it, and red means they will 100% rage quit. Recently, a new system was implemented that punishes players who rage quit by stripping them off of BP points. This change addresses most of the issues players had with rage quitters, though I assume there are still ways to mitigate this by turning off the console or something. Previously, people could rage quit games and not lose their BP or their winning streak, which is just scummy in my opinion. The game was hyped a lot before its release. People expected this to be Storm 5 we had all been waiting for, but after the game showcase, everything went downhill. Fans' hopes were crushed and they were angry, and rightfully so. The history mode is a joke of a mode and shouldn't even exist. Ultimate Ninja 4 and 3 had a history mode and they did it 100 times better. But the biggest joke was the game facing accusation of using AI for some of the voice lines.
Did that wake you up?
The personal story mode is great and I enjoyed it the most in this game. The story in itself is just superb. The online is good, but I can't really talk much about it since I'm not experienced with it. But my experience with it has been positive. Even though I get my ass handed to me, it's still fun, though there are some issues with it overall. The game is not great. It isn't worth the full price of $60 or $70. Heck, it's not even worth $30, which is what I actually paid for. If you're a Storm online player and only care about online, I suggest maybe waiting for a sale to justify the online mode. The same goes for the single player content. If you enjoy long, story-driven narratives with not much action, I would recommend getting it only for the special story, but only if the game is at an 80% discount or something. The history mode is just straight garbaggio and doesn't justify any price. But yeah, what do you guys think? Have you played it? If so, what do you think about the online and single player content? Let me know in the comments below. But yeah, that's it for me. I wish you all a nice day/evening. Bye guys.